Hello everyone and welcome to It Goes Off. And first and foremost, I want to welcome Grantley Bernard, who's done an absolutely sterling job in my absence. I was away in China taking a team over there to play a series of games. In actual fact, got to play against the great Brian Goorjian's team over there, but want to pass on our thanks to Cameron Tregar, who did a terrific job filling in. Your hosting was, it was hosting. We need to get stuck right into this because a lot's been happening. 3 rounds of the NBL competition already, Grantley Bernard, and it's fair to say that the Adelaide 36ers are not firing on all cylinders. And not only are they losing, but it's the way in which they're losing, which would be great concern to their fans and even more concerning to their head coach, Marty Clark.
I'm glad you've taken a breath. The Sixers are really struggling there. You know, it's the old question, is there light at the end of the tunnel hope, or is it the freight train coming the other way to clean them out? You know, they've lost at home by 33 and 23 to Perth and Sydney.
Yep.
That's not great. They look like they might have been going somewhere in the closer loss to the Hawks, but gee, they really got set back on the heels.
Well, they've had some issues. Adam Ballinger, who is a superstar of the NBL, he's been injured.
Yep.
And they've also had a problem. They had to send one of their imports home. They've got a new fella who played at the University of St Mary's. I think spent some time playing alongside Paddy Mills.
Yep.
Diamond Simpson. Now, he, from what we saw of him playing at the collegiate level, is very athletic, gets to the glass. He's had a game or so now. What do you make of him?
Look, haven't seen a whole lot of him, but his numbers are solid without being spectacular so far. And, you know, I think he'll be a keeper for them. And just to clarify, it is Diamond, D-I-A-M-O-N, no D, like you. But with Ballinger, he made his comeback on the weekend, had 8 and 7 in only 17 minutes of court time, so they're going to get a lot more out of Ballinger as they go along. But with road games against Perth and New Zealand coming up, it's hard to see the Sixers not being 0-5.
No, it's not, and it could be a long season for the Adelaide 36ers, and just some brilliant comedy by you, Grantley Bernard. Also, the Gold Coast Blaze, a little shaky start, but they bounced back in emphatic fashion on the road to the Wollongong Hawks, and really did a number on the Hawks in one of the worst Wollongong performances we've seen in quite some time. And a lot of credit you've got to give to the Gold Coast Blaze. They shared it around. Mark Worthington, he's going to be a focal point, but are they the real deal, Grantley Bernard?
Well, it goes without saying that the Blaze were overdue for this win. They finally got it, and it was an emphatic win. It was what they needed to stamp their authority on the competition and say, look, yes, slow out of the blocks, but we are coming. Don't underrate us, don't discount it. Discount us. The Blaze are going to be a factor by the time the season's done. And
Will Hudson, their import's only going to get better, but they're playing with only one import at the moment. Right. What sort of player? Have you heard any whispers about who they're looking at?
Very quiet on the import front. I think it's quite interesting that Gold Coast are an import down, Wollongong are an import down. And to me, I get the feeling that maybe they're just going to keep their powder dry and see what they need further down the track. Maybe bring someone in at Christmas when you can maybe you get more bang for your buck.
You do.
Spend half a money's worth or half a season's worth of money to get a really impact forward or guard, whatever you need. Similar to what the Dragons did.
Perth Wildcats have been notorious for it.
Correct. And the Dragons did that when they brought in Smith for their
Dante
Smith for their championship push. So that might be what Gold Coast is looking at.
They would, but from what I saw of the Wollongong Hawks against the Sydney Kings, I think that they may be in need of pulling the trigger on an import sooner rather than later, because they do need a little bit of help.
Yeah, having said that though, I like what the Hawks are doing in that they're giving the younger players.
Tyson Demos was very good against the Sydney Kings.
Tyson Demos has got a chance. Reece Martin's got a chance to run the team now at the point. So I think that's a good thing from them. And look, they're very financially responsible, the Hawks. They're not going to waste money, they're not going to spend money just for the sake of spending it. So they might think, look, you know what, this could be a good transition year, could be a good opportunity to get the younger blokes through, and next year we'll come back with 2 imports.
Spot on. And the Sydney Kings, Julian Khazzouh has continued on from his great work last season where he was the runner-up in the MVP voting, only by 1 vote. And when you consider the Sydney Kings were stone cold motherly last year, that was a superb performance by him. They're 2-2 now, the Sydney Kings. Julian Khazzouh, the big fella inside, he's got a bit of help with Jerome Grant. What do you make so far of the Sydney Kings? You tipped them to actually make the Final Four. Are you staying with them?
Oh, I jumped off last week.
After the shellacking they took to the Breakers, they bounced back.
I think they're going to be around the mark. I think eventually they'll get there. They'll be around the mark. But Khazzouh's obviously the big barometer for them. You know, he's had 26 and 13 and 20 on the weekend. If he's cooking, that's what they want. You know, Grant didn't have a good game against Adelaide, but then came back with
we know what you mean.
14 and 14 against the Hawks. So he's probably going to be a little inconsistent. That's why Khazzouh's still so important as the go-to man inside.
Well, that leads us nicely into our next section. Who's hot and who's not? Julian Khazzouh, we just come to expect that he's going to be hot all the time, but Tyson Demos is my pick for someone who is white hot at the moment. He had 20 points in the loss to the Sydney Kings, and given the extended minutes, he had a good apprenticeship served over the last few seasons, and would have learned a lot playing behind Gary Irvin last season, the league MVP, and he looks like he's in some great form.
No question. Tyson Demos, big shout out for him. He's one of our favourites here.
Is he?
And he had 10 and 20, and leading the league in tattoos.
Yes. Another one who's white hot at the moment is Anatoly Bose. A lot been made of him. Played at University of Nichols State in the United States. Played a collegiate career where he was a prolific scorer. First few games, just finding his way. He's big. He's athletic. He looks in shape. And most importantly for the Kings, he's starting to put some points on the board.
He is, and for 24 points, 8 of 13 field goals.
7 boards as well.
7 boards. That's a breakout game for Bose, so good job for him. And he could be the Anatoly Bose. He could be the Sydney Sound Machine.
Again, very good work by your good self. Let's focus on probably some of the lesser lights, some of the more concerning things in who is not hot at the minute. Not hot to me, and it goes without saying, the Adelaide 36ers. Not only are they losing, they're losing quite heavily.
They are. They've lost by a combined margin of 64 points over their 3 games. A couple of big, heavy home losses, and that's probably the worst thing. That, you know, it's okay to lose, but if you're going to lose big at home, you're going to have big problems. And the Adelaide fans, they will get on their back pretty quickly if they don't see what they like. So Adelaide, they're 0-3, looking down the barrel at 0-5 with a couple of tough road trips coming up.
Someone else who also wasn't all that hot on the weekend was the Wollongong Hawks. Did you see the game, Grantley, on Friday against the Gold Coast Blaze? Could not throw it in the ocean. Only were able to put 58 points on the board against the Blaze, and for a team that has been so successful over the last couple of years, playing at home, not hot.
No, cold. Stone motherless cold. 5th lowest total in team history, that 58 points, not good. Probably the only person with the Hawks that was happy would have been Zach Delaney, because he's a 25-25 player. Only gets on the floor if they're up 25 or down 25, then he did actually see a little court time there.
Cheerio to Zach. Also not so hot is Ron Dorsey. He had a very good breakout season. Well, not a break, his first season, a rookie season last year with the Cairns Taipans. Made the move across to a new coach, a new environment with the Melbourne Tigers, and hasn't necessarily played poorly, but just lacked opportunities and hasn't been all that productive.
No, he hasn't. And, you know, talking to Trevor Gleeson about this, he doesn't blame Dorsey at all for this. He's only averaging 3.3 points per game, which is down on his career average of 12.3. So he's not a prolific scorer as such, but he can make the big shots and he's a nice shooter when he gets going. But the Tigers need to get him involved more. They need to recognise where he's coming off the screens, making his cuts, where he's open to get the shots going.
And we saw what he did in that grand final series, particularly in that game 2 against the Cairns Taipans. He can explode from the 3-point line, so still plenty of upside there, and just working his way into a new system. Lastly, before we leave this segment, I just want to make an honourable mention. In fact, he deserves more than an honourable mention. Is Kevin Lish is absolutely smoking white hot at the moment, just shooting the ball at an unbelievable clip. What are his numbers, Grantley?
Kevin Lish had 28 points against the Crocs. He was 10 of 10 from the free throw line. On the season, he's averaging 24.3 points per game. He's shooting 70% on twos and 62.5% on threes.
Hot!
That is getting the job done, and you've probably got to say right now that Lish is the MVP favourite. Only 3 games in, but I think he's the fave.
Very early days, but that is some white hotness by Kevin Lish. Well done. And no, he's a prime reason why the Perth Wildcats are currently sitting on top of the ladder. Grantley, one of the more popular segments of the program last year was the 24-second shot challenge, and we've seen a bit of variety. Some of the clubs are really starting to express themselves, and this week we turn our attention to the Perth Wildcats because they are the number 1 team in the nation, and we took a look at how they would handle the 24-second shot challenge.
My name's Jess Wagstaff and this is Greg Hire, and we're here for the It Goes Off 24-second challenge. We've got Jeremiah Truman and Drew Williamson. How do you think you're going to go, JT?
Hopefully I'll do pretty well today. I'm looking forward to giving Drew a good run for his money, so we'll see how we do.
Juby, you going to win?
Yeah, I think I might. JT's been shooting really well lately, so I hope just to compete with him and make 1 or 2.
Let's do it. Bring it. Oh! 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 Yes! Yo, that's the best. Oh! Yeah. Jeremiah! Oh! Cool! Oh! Yo! What are you on? Yes! Go! Yes! 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 Yo! Yo! Jesus! Yes! Yes! Yo! Oh! Yes! One more! Yes! Yes! So 2 great shooters, Jeremiah, Drew Williamson, perfection at its finest, 8 and 8. All right, that was
2 minutes.
It Goes Off NBL challenge. It goes off.
Well, how about that, Grantley Bernard? Jeremiah Truman, big fella, you need to get back around the paint area, but still was able to knock down 8. And Drew Williamson also knocking down 8. But can you just feel that vibe of confidence? The boys out there just enjoying themselves.
Well, I don't know if it's a vibe of confidence or whether they've got a dodgy tape measure.
What?
Boys, it's at the free throw line.
Hey.
Not the top of the arc.
They are going so well. They said the free throw line, too close for the Wildcats. We need to step it back a little bit, and still the boys are able to knock it down. But what about the celebrations, the spinning on the...
Oh, they like that. No, the outside the arc, that's the hangover from Anthony Stewart's days at the Wildcats.
Yes.
Apparently, someone painted a 3-point arc around his driveway one day, and he wouldn't go in the house.
Couldn't get in
Never
there.
went inside the 3-point arc.
Well, the Perth Wildcats, they're knocking it down from everywhere, and great to see the boys enjoying themselves. All right, it's now time for a little segment we call the Mark Zuckerberg Minute. And that's where we attack your questions. We want your feedback, so jump on the NBL Facebook page or hit us on the Twitter. I'm Andrew Gage 10, you're...
Grantley Bernard.
Grantley Bernard, simple as that. Grantley Bernard, we want your feedback and we attack your questions, and because of that, we give the opportunity for you to win a fantastic prize, which is this, a official Spalding NBL game ball. Oh, it's a quality product, and that's what you get for being a little smarty, Grantley Bernard. But it is a quality product, and to the best question which we read out, you'll be copying one of these. It's a beautiful product. And the first question we've got for today is from Scott Deeks, and it's a good one. Is the Hawks v Kings the most intense rivalry in the NBL? And we saw it just this weekend on Sunday night. 3,500 people getting out there, but just the atmosphere at the venue, the Sydney Entertainment Centre, and when you go down to Wollongong with these two teams going at it, it is a very intense rivalry. But I tell you what, I think just in more recent times, the Melbourne-Sydney rivalry is one that is really starting to gather some momentum, going back to the Brian Goorjian days, and when he was coaching the Kings, a little bit of unfriendliness going on there. So I'm not sure. I don't think, in fact, the Kings-Hawks rivalry is the most intense.
Now, see, I disagree with you on the Tigers-Kings rivalry, because you may remember there was a couple of years off there.
Well, they had a bit of a spell.
So I do think the Kings and the Hawks have got a little bit. They're only that 100 k's apart geographically. I think the Crocs and the Taipans have probably got a little some going on up there up north of the Reptile Rumble.
I would have thought so.
But I really think there is a bit of something in the Kings and the Hawks.
No, it's a good one, and it's one that that I think as the teams emerge, and I guess in recent times the Sydney Kings haven't been all that flash, so it's been really hard to get too much involved. But it's one that's stood the test of time. It's been around a long, long time. Next up, we have, who we got, Grantley?
Sarah Gunn, who says, do you think the NBL game is too slow for Paddy Mills? Just asking because he looked like he was going too fast against the New Zealand Breakers and had a few turnovers.
No, I don't think so. I think Paddy Mills is a super fast. He's got an extra gear, and particularly with the ball in his hands, there's a lot of players that can get out and run the lanes and are super quick. But when you're trying to control that ball, the speed he goes at, it's a big challenge. And the NBL, though, he has to deal with a lot of attention out there, and probably even more so than he does in the NBA, because in the NBL he is the prime mover for the Melbourne Tigers, and a lot of times they're double teaming him. But I wouldn't have thought that the game was too slow for him. He's just he plays at a very quick pace, and sometimes that generates a few turnovers along the way.
Yeah, it can do, and I think it's a different sort of tempo, a different style to the NBA, so he's probably got to make that little adjustment as well. But I would never have thought that any game was too slow for Paddy Mills. No. He's just going to go 100 the whole way.
And our last question, Grantley, comes from Philip Cho, who wants to be enlightened a little bit about the goings-on between the Melbourne Tigers and Daryl Coletto. What's his question?
He says, with all the drama caused by Tigers coach Trevor Gleeson and Daryl Coletto, now with the New Zealand Breakers, who do you think was in the wrong and why?
And this, of course, referring back to when Daryl has left the Tigers, because the Tigers need to find some space to get Paddy Mills into the roster. And it was an unpleasant situation, let's face it, because Daryl Coletto has been with the Melbourne Tigers since he was 14 years of age and moved on. But at the end, it's all worked out well, I think. Daryl's got a fantastic situation with New Zealand. The Melbourne Tigers have got Paddy Mills, and there was that public display of affection at the end of the game on Saturday between Seamus McPeat and Daryl Coletto. So I think all has been resolved, and as it should be.
Look, I think, in fairness to all parties, I think there was a little bit of angst in the process. There was probably a little lack of communication at times. I don't think you can lay the blame
in any one party.
At either party.
No.
And like you say, I think everyone sort of said, look, we've said our piece, we've done what we had to do, it's now time to move on.
It is. And, well, it's now time for us to pick a winner of those three questions. Who are you going to vote for, Grantley?
I like Scotty Deeks, the first question about the Hawks and Kings rivalry.
Well, there it is, Scotty. Courtesy of Grantley Bernard, Scotty Deeks, Spalding NBL Game Ball coming your way. Grantley, we've had 3 rounds of quality NBL basketball action, and we're now up to round 4. This weekend, some very important games coming up. Talk us through the schedule for round 4.
It's a triple treat on Friday. It starts with the New Zealand Breakers at home to the Sydney Kings. That should be a good one. Then out west, you've got the undefeated Perth Wildcats against the winless Adelaide 36ers. Then up north, the Cairns Taipans against the Wollongong Hawks. On Saturday night, it's a standalone game, the Townsville Crocs against the Gold Coast Blaze. And on Sunday, the Hawks are at home to the Tigers.
Now, that's all we have time for this week. Another brilliant performance by you, Grantley Bernard. You're really starting to get the hang of this caper. Well done. But before we go, we've got to pay homage to those that support us. And it all starts with a naming rights sponsor to the NBL, IINet.
1.
Centrebet.
And 1.
Spalding.
Rent Smart.
Virgin Australia. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next week on the #1 podcast for the NBL in the world. It goes off.